We are live in 3, 2. Welcome to Modern Movie Review. I am your host, Genesis Savage, and today we are going to be talking about Jordan Peele's newest release, the movie Nope. Before we dive into all of that, I want to give a little backstory and insight to you guys on how this show came to be and why I want to do it. Basically, I graduated from film school last year, 2021, and as I started working in the professional film world, I quickly came to realize that my professors weren't exaggerating when they said it's all about who you know. And moving to Atlanta from Cleveland, Ohio, I knew absolutely no one. So I thought my degree would serve me exponentially in the field. And unfortunately, the reality is that it didn't. And that's okay, I guess. But I became really frustrated with the fact that nobody wanted to take a shot on me despite being educated in this field for 4 years. And I felt like I had a lot of skill and a lot of knowledge to offer, and nobody was taking me up on it. So here I am. I'm doing my own thing, happy to be here. And I just wanted to be able to share my opinion and my perspective on a lot of films and TV shows based on what I learned in school. And I wanted to share that with the typical viewer, which is you right now. The goal of this show is to just go a little deeper, go beyond the screen, if you will. For tons of movies and television shows across the board, horror, comedy, drama, rom-com, all of it, I'm here to go beyond the screen for all of it with you. Little disclaimer, nothing that I'm stating is factual. A lot of the things that I'm sharing with you are totally my interpretation of things based on what I know and having worked on films and television shows behind the scenes in the past. 95% of the time, I haven't worked on set for this stuff. I haven't spoken directly to any of the writer-directors for these things. So please don't assume that I automatically know exactly what I'm talking about. Again, a lot of this stuff is solely my interpretation of things. All of that being said, let's gear up, because we are going behind the scenes and beyond the screen of Jordan Peele's and others' newest release, Nope. First thing I want to talk about is how big of a fan of Jordan Peele I am. He is so creative. I mean, he completely exemplifies everything that I would want to be as a writer-director in this industry. He leaves his work open to interpretation. And that was one of the things that I truly fell in love with about filmmaking, is that storytelling is an art form. And just like a painting or a sculpture, the story is completely open to interpretation, and Jordan Peele stays true to that principle. Long before I even saw the movie, I had heard so many people talking about Nope. And a lot of times in a negative light, in a negative way. They didn't like it, they thought it was stupid, they thought it was corny. And I was like, no way, like this is Jordan Peele. There's no way that he released something shitty, right? So I'm like, I have to see this movie. So I went to see it, and I mean, I was totally engulfed by it. And I think that's Jordan Peele's goal. I mean, he wants to envelop his audience in his work. He wants you to experience what's happening along with the characters. At the heart of a lot of his projects, he just wants to make you feel something. And that is such a huge principle of storytelling. If I can't make you feel something, what's the point of watching? If you're not going to feel for my characters, if you're not going to relate to my plot line, if you're not going to care about the story I have to tell, then why watch? You know? That's just the way I think of it. And Peele always makes it clear that he knows his history. He knows his film history. I mean, even with the incorporation of the first film into this movie, the first moving image of the black man riding a horse, for him to build such an insane concept off of that film, the first film, that's incredible to me. As far as film history and what all of that is about, I am super grateful that he makes it a point to incorporate that stuff in his work. So from his visual storytelling to his lighting, to his shot composition, to the way that he writes, it's very clear that he knows what he's doing. He leaves everything almost to the perception of the viewer. And personally, for me, that means a lot, because that was one of the reasons that I fell in love with filmmaking, is that the film is totally up to your interpretation. Sure, there are hidden meanings behind it that the writer probably intended for you to understand, but at the end of the day, whatever you take from it should be what you take from it. First category I want to get into is just a general breakdown as far as the main characters in this film. It's super awesome to me that the main characters are not only black, but it's amazing that their main characteristic is not their race. And I feel like a lot of filmmakers, directors, writers, whatever, get caught up on that. When they write a black character, most of the time, the main characteristic of that character is that they're black. Or they're black and they're feeding into some black stereotype. I don't know about you, but I've never heard the narrative of two black siblings raising horses on a ranch in California, discovering a UFO. The siblings being black is definitely not the most insane thing about that sentence. You just don't see it. It's not the norm. It's not the norm for us to see ourselves in roles like that. So as a woman of color, that meant a lot to me. I love that the relationship between the two was so loving and so heartfelt. I mean, their relationship as siblings was genuine, and it fed into the audience through the screen. I feel like Peele is always aiming to break the stereotypes. And I feel like black people have to stop seeing ourselves as slaves, as just people from Africa who came over to this country, as baby mamas, as drug dealers. I mean, we are so much more than all of that. So much more. There's so much more to us. We have such a plethora of experiences as black people that go way beyond those instances. So super thankful to him for putting black people in these roles and not making it about the fact that they're black. Because Peele said himself, he doesn't want it to be about their race. That's not meant to be the center of conversation about this, which is why I'm going to move on. I don't want to stay stuck on that too long. I did just want to put that little snippet in there because I really appreciated it. The plot. I love that Peele gave us some backstory as far as the father and his relationship with his son in the beginning of the film. He gives us just enough to where we care about the fact that the dad died and we care about how that made his son feel without letting it drag on. Because the story is not about the dad. However, the death of the dad is the catalyst, and I feel like that's why it's so important that that's in there. And I've actually heard a lot of feedback from people that, you know, they feel like that scene didn't need to be in there. What was the point of the dad being there if he was only in it for 5 minutes? But it's like, no, the whole point is for you to understand that had life continued on as they knew it, they may not have been catapulted into this insane adventure that they end up going on. We're under the impression that Em and OJ are a little bit estranged before the dad's death. I mean, she's moved to LA, she's doing her thing. And OJ is not a super outspoken person, and that's made clear very, very early on. So it makes sense that his super outgoing, ambitious little sister has to come assist him on these film ventures where people want to rent the horses and they need animal wranglers on set, which is very important. If you don't know that, anytime you see an animal in a movie, there is a wrangler. There must be a wrangler there all the time to be responsible for those animals and know how to control them. So it's super important for him to have his sister there in those moments to be able to do what she does in the beginning, which is give the whole spiel, you know, say safety rules, even though she jazzes it up a little bit. But she keeps it lively. OJ's not a man of many words, and we learn that very, very early on. OJ and his sister are animal wranglers, and they know these animals, they feel these horses, they feel what they feel. And so later on in the film, when we start seeing the horses react to the presence of this thing in the air, it's like they're hyper aware of it. Another beautiful thing about this plot is that every situation has its place in this movie. Every character has their purpose, and every character relationship contributes to the plot line in some way, even down to the Best Buy guy. What is his name? I'm gonna find it really quick. Brandon Perea, aka Angel, Best Buy guy who sells them the cameras. That is a beautiful character because he is almost 100%, well, we'll say 90% there for comedic relief. And he is there to give you a moment to breathe, right? Jordan Peele does a great job of building suspense and getting your blood pumping, right? We need a moment where we can just laugh a little bit, and Angel totally provides that for us. And where Peele isn't advancing the plot, he is building those character relationships. I felt completely attached to these characters, and I felt like I could relate to them. And that's why it made me feel what they were feeling. I felt, in the theater, I felt anxious, I felt scared, I felt on edge. And that is so important. If you can do that, if you can take your character's emotions through the screen and to your audience, you're an incredible writer and an awesome director. The point of this show also is to make sure that people understand the credit that deserves to be given to everyone involved in the making of these movies and television shows. A lot of times we just get one name. We get one name and one person accepts the award. But I think it's super important for us to acknowledge that there are hundreds, not tens, hundreds of people involved in the production of stuff like this. So, yes, obviously Jordan Peele is an amazing writer-director, but there were so many people who played a role in the execution of this film for me to be even talking about it in the way that I am right now. I love that Jordan Peele's movies, and I'm mainly speaking about Nope and Get Out, of course, they're inconspicuous horror films, I like to call them. And by that I just mean it's not obvious that it's a horror movie right away, right? Like, Jordan Peele almost tricks the audience into being invested, right? Before it gets too scary, to the point where by the time it does get scary, aka the bloody house moment where the UFO dumps the blood of human beings and animals onto OJ and Emerald's home, before it gets to that point, we are completely invested and we're willing to see it through until the end. The bloody house image was heavy. That was a lot. But it was super cool. And it made me feel so uncomfortable and afraid and on the edge of my seat, and I enjoyed every second of it. Peele knows what he's doing with that. And he employs so many aspects that you could put his work into its own genre. I mean, Jordan Peele's movies, they have to be categorized in a genre, of course, right? Because it's a movie. But as far as the way that everything flows together in his works, it's, like I said, it's inconspicuous. He employs so many different principles and techniques that it's hard to categorize it as one specific thing. And I have a hard time believing that most people wouldn't agree with me on that. You know, there's lots of stuff that can be said, but it's not blatantly horror, action, or comedy. You know, he incorporates all of it while still making a point to build up your anxiety. It's almost like in the beginning, he gets you to trust it. He gets you to trust him as the writer, as the director. And then the moments when you least expect it, he flips the script on you, quite literally. And the comedic relief in Nope specifically is beautiful. The Best Buy guy was one of my favorite characters. Angel, have to start using his name. But the character of Angel was phenomenal to me, especially because he chose this, right? Angel chose to be a part of this adventure. I mean, he doesn't live on the ranch. He doesn't live anywhere near the ranch. He works a normal job. He's a normal guy working at Best Buy. And he comes across these two siblings who have no idea what they're doing with these cameras and decides, I'm going to invest myself into whatever they've got going on up there. And instantly becomes a carrier of the comedy in the film. Even his reactions are quite hilarious. It's great because that's yet another relationship being formed, right? OJ and Emerald both form a relationship with Angel where they let him, right? They let him be involved in this. They accept his help, not initially, not right away, but he essentially becomes their third sibling, their kid brother, almost, if you will. Next thing I want to talk about is the costume design, specifically in relation to the personalities of the characters. So first off, I want to start by talking about Emerald and her quirky style. The first outfit we see her in is this cheetah print tank top with this green cropped sweatshirt, pink shorts, and some tennis shoes, sneakers, if you will, and a fro. And it's like, my first thought was, what the hell is she wearing? Right? And I feel like a lot of the audience could probably agree with that thought. As we get to know her, though, as a character, it makes sense, right? Because as you get to know her, she's fierce, but she's a little scatterbrained. She's edgy, but goofy. And she's confident, but questionable in her approach to a lot of things. So her style completely reads into who she is as a person. And it's just, it works because she's this ranch girl who moved to LA. And so it's very clear that she has this quirkiness about her that's clearly been influenced by a different environment. So it works. At first, you're like, what is going on? Like, what is this girl wearing? But then, like I said, as we get to know her, it starts to make sense. Then we move on to OJ. OJ has a pretty simplistic style. It's t-shirt, jeans, boots, and that aligns with his character. I mean, it's clear that OJ doesn't want for much. You know, he is content with where he is in life, and it totally plays into him as a character and how we see him as the audience, because it makes it that much more exciting when we see him take on this adventure with his sister, because we know as the audience that this type of thing completely out of his comfort zone. OJ is totally content with taking care of his horses, eating dinner, and chilling, being in his own company. So when we see him take this on, challenging this UFO with his sister and some random dude they met at Best Buy, it's almost exciting for us as an audience. It's like, yes, OJ's got this. I personally got attached to him as a character very much. I felt like he was my big brother, because he had this confidence about him where you feel comfortable having him watching over you. But then he also has a shyness to him that makes it super fun for us to watch him run away from this UFO, leading them away from the house, and coming up with devising this plan. I mean, he's super clever. And I think naturally as humans, we are attracted to intelligence. And OJ exemplifies a very reserved intelligence. He doesn't need to say much, but we know that he knows what's going on and he's observing everything around him, you know? So I think that his wardrobe really plays into that, because he's not too out there. He's not drawing attention to himself like Emerald, right? Emerald, her outfit is like, bam, I got pink, I got green, I'm here, you see me, I am it. And OJ is very much, he falls into the background. He has his graphic tee, some jeans, and he's just there until he's not. As we progress further into the plot line, OJ's not just there. He is the main character. Even though he's the one we've known from the beginning, when we meet Emerald, it's like our attention instantly wants to shift to her, right? She is this bright, shiny thing that we want to know more about. But as the plot continues, we shift back to OJ. And we're like, oh no, like this guy's in charge and he knows what to do. And we should trust him. As a character, we can trust him with how this is going to play out. Now we're going to jump over to the writing. There's really not much to criticize here. I mean, I feel like Jordan Peele is such an incredible writer. Definitely one of the best of our generation. In my opinion, remember, none of this is like factual or anything, but in my opinion, I truly look up to Jordan Peele as a writer and a director. And I think his dialogue, it just never feels forced. It never feels like the actors have to try too hard to get into the mindset that he was aiming for. I was watching one of the behind the scenes videos that was created about the film Nope, and just going behind the scenes of that set and the production. And Peele said himself, he likes to give his actors the ability to put their own flair on the story, you know, obviously while sticking true to the heart of the story that he's trying to tell. He gives them that freedom. And I think that's beautiful. You could tell that he's so passionate about the stories that he's telling. You can tell that he gives his cast the freedom to improvise and just put their own spin on what it is he's trying to say. And another thing is it's just very raw. You know, like one of my favorite moments in Nope is when Emerald and OJ have a moment where their cinematographer, the cinematographer that they reached out to get the UFO on tape, shows up to their house with this super like vintage camera, but high quality. And they just, they're like dapping each other up. They're super excited. And it's funny, but it's real. Like that's so raw. That's such a raw interaction between two black siblings. It was so legitimate. I couldn't help but to appreciate it in that moment. It quickly became my favorite moment of the entire movie. So while the situation always feels urgent here and it's increasing your level of anxiety as the plot continues, Peele makes sure to give you little moments of relief. He gives you little moments where you can breathe, right? And so them dapping each other up, that's a moment. right? The Best Buy guy calling them out of the blue, unprompted, to let them know that their camera is being blocked. That's a moment. He gives you moments throughout this super like intense, twisted, gory film where you can just relax a little bit. And I think he does that on purpose. I think he wants the audience to feel safe for a moment. And he almost reminds us like, don't worry, you can trust me. I won't do too much. And then hits you with blood being poured all over a house or people in a stadium being sucked up into a UFO. There's just, I mean, and he's good at it. He does a great job of it. He did it to us with Get Out. You know, he gave us little moments here and there with the best friend, who's like obviously the comedic relief in that one, where we could just breathe. I think the world of Jordan Peele, obviously, if I haven't made it clear by now, and Nope has easily become one of my favorite movies that's been released recently. And I just really appreciate the way that it was executed. And I hope that after watching this, you can appreciate it a little differently as well, just as an audience member. Another thing I want to talk about with you guys here is definitely the lighting in the film. I won't go too much in depth. Honestly, lighting is not my forte. I'm not an expert in anything grip and electric. However, I couldn't help but notice the blues in the film. You'll notice a lot more towards the end in the nighttime scenes. Specifically, I keep bringing up the bloody house, but that's such a strong image that has stuck in my head from this movie. But that whole scene, even when, I mean, if you look at the poster for Nope, it's incredibly blue, but it's not obnoxious. It's not too bright. It is the perfect clear night sky, right? And so even when OJ is out in the field within the fence with the horse, it's just so, it's almost taunting you. It's just a vast image of blue, of night. And I think Jordan Peele kind of brings our childish fears to life with that choice. And that's an aspect of every horror movie, right? Like most of the bad stuff happens at night. You know, as long as it's daylight out, everybody's okay, everything's fine. One thing that really stuck in my mind was those blues. And I think that's a staple of this movie, is just the color, the tone of the image on screen, which is, it's very dark, right? We can see for miles, but it's just a vast sea of nighttime. And that definitely plays on a childhood fear. I can't speak for you, but for me personally, when I am in such an open space, especially at nighttime, and it's just vast nothingness around me, I feel very vulnerable. And so you have to insert yourself into the position of the character and ask yourself, how scary would this be for me if I was in this moment? Between the blues and the reds, man, when the blood rain starts coming down on that house, that is a powerful image. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that. The Blood House. That was a bold choice on production's part, and I thoroughly enjoyed every second of it. I mean, that's like all of the notes that I have for Nope. I could probably talk about this movie for hours on end, but I have a very limited amount of time to shoot this show and put it together for you guys, so I want to keep it brief, and I want you to watch the whole thing. So I don't want to go on for too long, but overall, I give Jordan Peele's Nope a 9 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed that film. If you haven't seen it yet, please do, and go in with an open mind. if you have seen it and you're watching this and you're rethinking some things, hopefully I've motivated you to maybe give it a second look and go watch it again. Because a lot of times when you see a movie a second time, third time, fourth time, you're gonna catch a lot of stuff that you didn't see that first time around. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. This has been your Modern Movie Review. I am Genesis Savage, your host, and I am so thankful that you tuned in with us today. Make sure you drop a comment below, debate with me, challenge me, agree with me. Let me know what you thought about this first episode of Modern Movie Review. Yeah, so make sure you tune in with us next week, guys. Until then, go watch a movie and think beyond the screen.